Whether it's the regular season or the off-season, we have you covered as we give you the best Tennessee Titans and NFL news and insight that a fan could ask for. You're watching the Titan Upload Network.
Watching the Power Hour with your hosts, Michael Bishop and Tyler Stiles.
The Power Hour's on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and as always, thank you for joining us on this fine Monday evening. Well, I've kind of got a good news, bad news scenario, and, I hate throwing bad news out, especially on a Monday. It's always show day, excitement's in the air, energy's high. So I just hate giving that vibe. But understand me, I'm leading in with something good. We'll always start with the bad news to kind of soften the blow moving forward. The bad news is Tyler's feeling a little under the weather today, unfortunately, so he will not be joining us on the show. I've got to put him on the IR this week, so hopefully he'll be on the mend. Nothing serious, but hopefully by next week we'll have him back for camp talk, and that is crucial, especially knowing what we're going to be going into very soon. So I told him, rest up, no worries. We'll get you back when we get you back. I can deal. We've had things like this happen all year. Not going to stress it. However, as I said, there's good news to soften the blow with everything. As we all know, I love getting new creators on here. I love having these guys just come and share their craft. I watch from afar, and I really enjoy a lot of what these new content creators are doing, and they really do a good job covering the Titans. And I just kind of like picking their brains. So it's nice getting them on the show and getting their perspective, especially early in the season, because you get too in-depth with regular season stuff, and it's really hard to try and just get them on because they're doing their own thing. And I don't want to be that dude that try and jumps in and gets some involved in stuff when they're trying to get their stuff done. Understandable. Respect the boundaries. That being said, it is my privilege tonight to be introducing to you a young and upcoming star. We've had many of them on the show, and I have no doubt he is going to do some fantastic things with his craft. He has really done an amazing job, especially with what he's been getting put on the air and just content-wise. I really enjoy this kid, and you are too. So please welcome me tonight, the Titans podcast, Jackson Weber, and joining us on the show and taking over Tyler's duties tonight. Jackson, I appreciate you taking the time to do the show with me on the Power Hour. How are you doing on this fine Monday evening, my friend?
I'm doing great, my friend. How you doing? I appreciate you having me on, man. This is a great day to end a Monday and a great day to end a birthday, too.
Definitely didn't get to add that part in, but as you said, it is your birthday. Happy birthday from all of us on the show, the Titan Upload Network, and Roundtable Sports as well. You've been doing a phenomenal job, and we've definitely been watching you from afar, and it's been just amazing content that you've been putting out. And I can't gush everything. I got to let you talk to the audience just a little bit and tell them what you've been up to. So what's something they need to be catching on your channel right now, Jackson? And don't be modest. You've really had a really amazing show put out, so spare no expense.
Yeah, we just had a great episode on Sunday with former Titans safety Michael Griffin. It's been in the works for a while, and it was such a blessing to have him on. And, Michael, as you and I talked about earlier, as a younger fan, it's kind of cool to have a guy explain passionate about what he did and his time when I was just growing up as a fan, right? So that really meant a lot to me. But, we have episodes every Sunday, break down latest news, all the stuff that happens. We just had one out today. I throw a couple teasers about Jermaine Johnson and Cedric Gray, which we'll talk about Cedric Gray today. But, I get the best news out there as much as I can, and it's an independent show. I do this all by myself. I had thought about this a year and a half ago, when we moved out here. It's like, hey, what if I start a Titans podcast? And it kind of came to wings about it, right? And people, as you know it, Michael, and everybody else knows, it's not easy. It's not the easiest thing to do. And I know people are going to be kind of surprised. I was never a guy who liked to be in front of the camera. I always like to be behind the scenes. So yeah, I love football. I love sports. We talk all things about Titans. We break everything down. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. Central. We're gonna have starting 2 episodes a week because of training camp. So I love what I do, and it's honestly the last year and a half I have grown a lot, and then the content we're still growing today. And every single day, my goal is just to take a step and for the others. So love making content, love having guests on, and we're definitely gonna get some more guests on pretty soon.
Very excited for you. Like I said, you've been putting out great content. Check out the Titan Report podcast, Jackson Webster. It is his baby. He's putting in the work and the effort, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Like a lot of great content creators, he's really just putting himself out there, and there's skill, there's talent. You're a little raw still in some instances, but you're getting there. I promise you, you got the goods. Just keep doing what you're doing. You were like just nailing it, my friend.
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot.
But I'm sure the audience didn't come to see me just gush about you on your birthday, even though it is your special day and you're very much a privy to it. But we got a lot of ball to talk about, and I definitely don't want to like sit on everything fun that we're going to be discussing tonight. But before we jump into the kickoff, I felt this was kind of an interesting topic, especially since it just kind of just jumped out in front of us. And usually you like talking about just the hot topic buttons that kind of just come out, and it's an interesting kind of kick piece. So Vita Vea obviously wants to be a top 3 paid defensive tackle, and it's understandable, especially with the skill that he continues to produce into his 30s. But of course, I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers see it that way. Obviously, news comes out today that he's still unhappy with the situation that he's in, and he's now asking for a trade. So let's just start with this point, because I think we need to kind of just stop this in its tracks before I think people get too taken away with it. Vita Vea is not coming to the Titans.
No,
it's not happening. I don't want to be that guy, but let's just be honest.
Let's hold the brakes. Let's hold the brakes a little bit.
This man wants major defensive tackle money. I'm not willing to like have just 3 high paid defensive tackles. And obviously Jackson's on my side with this one. But just for speculation side, Jackson, because I like kind of kicking the tires on some ideas like this. Where would you think Vita Vea would go if the right opportunity would present itself?
So it's funny enough, I actually saw before we came on here today a rumor that he wants to go to California. So a team that I immediately thought of is the San Francisco 49ers. They got some money, they got some capital. I think it's really going to matter how much he's going to want to get paid, number one. And number two, if he is really interested in a California team, what's high on his list? Now, the Rams, do you really? I mean, it could happen. It's still a possibility, right? You just added Myles Garrett, but are they going to get another guy on that defensive line? I don't know. But if they get Myles Garrett and Vea on that defensive line, I know it's speculation. But you looking at that aspect and you look at Les Snead, who's done crazy trades in the past. Could that maybe be another crazy trade? But the San Francisco 49ers make a lot of sense, especially to that defensive line. That's, last year, Robert Saleh knows it as much as we all do. They've had so many injuries, right? So I think Vea fits perfectly on the Niners. I won't be surprised if the Raiders get involved. I know it's a little bit of a sleeper team. The Raiders still have Max Crosby. So do you want to go potentially to the Raiders? But I think the 49ers is the best fit for Vea.
And I mean, I could definitely see that, but I also feel like Tampa doesn't want to send their best player right next to Mike Evans, because that would just be too just coincidental, I guess would be the best word to use. But I would also kind of think, from a sense, most teams try and steer away from just, conference rivals. So I kind of see a lot of NFC teams not getting into that action. I think they'd feel more comfortable, especially just potentially moving him out somewhere in the AFC. So you kind of look at the salary cap situation right now, and I look at teams that might be a pretty decent fit and have a little bit of money to spend. I say, why not the Broncos? You've got a championship window open. You've got a massive hole where John Franklin Myers is left. Seems to me that would be a pretty solid fit, especially for a veteran coach that understands veteran players.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on the Denver part. And remember, there's one, if Bo Nix was there, they would have gone to the Super Bowl. They had the team all around, right? So they would have gone to the Super Bowl last year, and they would have potentially beaten the Patriots. So I think a guy like Vita would be if he goes to Denver. I think we're talking potential AFC Championship, potential maybe Super Bowl odds for Denver in that ring.
But then again, I have to think of this. I definitely bring up a con to that scenario. Denver's capital's kind of like depleted, especially after the Waddle trade. So
Do you know their
unless
cap by chance? Because I don't have it in front of me.
I think right now it's sitting about 29 mil. So they could pay him if they wanted to, possibly a 3-year deal, and still get him to be one of the top 3, top 2 defensive tackles. But I mean, you kind of look at the teams at the top right now. Like I said, I'm kind of just staying away from the NFC teams in general. So I mean, the Chargers would come up at 40 million, but I don't think they would go that route.
I don't think they would either.
Patriots might be an option, which I won't rule that out, especially if Vrabel's willing to like spend about a 3-year deal to get him. Texans could do it. Don't want it, but I mean, they could do it.
I know they could.
So, I mean, the Texans and the Colts really could pull that off if they want, but they got a lot of tough decisions to make in the next couple of years as well. So, I mean, you got CJ Stroud contract coming up for them, and then the Colts, you still really don't have a solidified idea of what your quarterback situation is going to be. So, I mean, for some of these teams, it's definitely intriguing if they want to try and spend that money on a 30-year-old player. But still, I think Vita Vea is very much in the prime of his career and can help the right team with everything else set up around him. So if Denver's willing to maybe trade a certain player that they feel they can kind of just do without and maybe just a high draft pick, I think that's worth listening to.
I agree. And I think it's also going to matter how much is he willing to get paid, right? Now, these could just be all talks. Maybe Vita, maybe they come to negotiations. Maybe he has already a set price. We don't know that answer, Michael. That's kind of the biggest thing. So what is that price tag for Vita? And Jeffrey Simmons is the highest paid defensive tackle. Do you want to pay him? Do you want to go up to, does he want to go $35 million a year? So we don't really know that yet. I think time is still very early to tell currently in July. So I think this will play out itself, and we'll see in the matter of coming weeks. If he's not there during training camp, I think things are going to get very spark. I think things are going to get more intense. And if you see this go on, right? So I saw a tiny clip. I didn't see the whole thing. Kate Adams, he's basically saying, hey, we'll see. Hopefully this thing gets done. So that was earlier this morning, Michael. And we're coming here at 7 p.m. and things have quickly just changed. And he's already wants to request the trade. Now, again, I think people also have to understand Tampa doesn't have to trade him. It means you request a trade doesn't mean you have to, the team immediately has to say, oh, yeah, we're going to trade you. No, they can easily hold on to them. I think that's what fans also have to understand that perspective too.
At the end of the day, it's got to come down to something to where both teams feel like they're getting financially and player-wise compensated in terms to where they feel comfortable about the deal. Nobody wants to feel like that they got stolen. That's every GM's worst nightmare. So obviously there's going to be some major intrigue, and I expect Tampa to field some phone calls, but they're going to obviously say, we're not interested right now, but they're taking the calls just like anybody is.
It's like what the Cardinals did just a couple months ago with Josh Sweat. The people, insiders were saying he was going to get traded, but as of right now, he's not going to get traded. So as we're kind of going off into this, number one, it's going to cost with how much does he want? And is Tampa willing to maybe meet in the middle with his agent? I don't think I don't know if he'll get 35. I don't think he'll get $35 million. It's kind of hard to say, but is he willing to maybe move down the price tag just a little bit? Again, we don't know the price tag. So if he's willing to negotiate with the GM and the ownership with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then I think he'll be fine. But if you start to talk about it, and if Tampa's like, we're talking about this maybe late August, maybe a month from today, this is kind of the end of preseason, and you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, he's not practiced, he's not been there, he's kind of holding out. What do we do at this point? So I'm kind of watching this, kind of watching this as this goes on through the next month, and then maybe Tampa will make a decision. But I don't think as of today, I don't think Tampa's going to trade him right now.
There'll definitely be an intriguing situation to play out how it goes when camp hits. And I don't think it's going to go anytime soon, especially if there's not a trade happened or if the contract extension's put in place. Basically, the die has been cast, and it is up to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to decide what they're going to do with their 30-plus-year-old superstar that very much has very much intrigue for a defense that could potentially turn the corner if he's the one piece that they need. All right, Jackson, we got to chat about that a little bit, but let's get down to the brass tacks and get this show started. Especially on your birthday, one more time, a happy birthday to you. But are you ready to get it rolling, my friend?
I am ready to get it rolling. Let's go.
Let's jump into the kickoff with Jackson Weber joining us on the Power Hour tonight with me, your host, Michael Bishop. And let's hit the kickoff right now.
And here's the kick.
So let's be honest, we get really excited with what Robert Saleh is potentially going to be doing with this defense. And we've talked about endless scenarios with endless defensive players and how they can continue to find ways to impact this defense in 2026. And call me crazy, but I just don't think Cedric Gray is really getting a lot of discussion points. I know there's been talking points with him just in certain aspects, but I don't think we truly understand how much that he could potentially be impacted with Robert Saleh's tutelage and how Gus Bradley can really get the best out of him. We've seen what kind of numbers he can put up, especially when he stays healthy for a majority of the season. But this is just the exciting part to me, Jackson. I really think that this could be a Pro Bowl year for Cedric Gray.
I'm all with you. I said it earlier. Cedric Gray, when you look at last year, he was kind of the backup role. Was he going to be, a guy that's going to take a emerge? Because remember, this is a Rand Carthon draft pick. Where was he going to find his fit? He's had injuries before, right? Cedric Gray, when Robert Saleh got hired by the Titans, I was very excited about the development of Cedric Gray heading to his third season. Because Cedric Gray last year showed a lot of good things. He had a lot of tackles last year. I think he was a guy that had a really good speed, and he caught up to a lot of good things. But I think it also, number one, impacts the defensive line. The defensive line is way better this year on the defense as a whole, so it's going to help Cedric Gray a lot. But I think this year, the biggest thing for him is he has his feet wet. And last year, he didn't have his feet wet at all. So I think he's settling down now. I think once he settles down and plays more faster, I think that's the biggest thing for him. He's a guy that flies to the football. When you watch this guy on tape, this guy is almost in every single play on the sideline. He's either there or he's impacting the play. And I think he needs to improve more on coverage and especially being more consistent. But I think Cedric Gray can easily have a season. And Michael, I totally agree with you. I think Cedric Gray is going to have a Pro Bowl year this year. You look at the linebackers that Robert Saleh has helped over his career. He was helping Fred. I know Fred Warner is already a star, but he was with Fred Warner in San Francisco. You look at Quincy Williams. He developed him with the New York Jets. So I think Cedric Gray could potentially have a season where you're at the end of the year. I know this is going to be a little hot take. I think he'd be a top 10 linebacker at the end of the season when this is all said and done. I think Cedric Gray could be in that discussion in the top 10. So if he be more consistent this year and he has better coverage skills this year, I think this is Cedric Gray's year, man. I'm very excited what we can do in year 3. I don't think you're crazy, Michael. I'm right with you.
And look, a lot of it can be hearsay, and that's debatable at that point. But understandable that the biggest problems the Titans have had, especially when they have players that are playing at a high level, they don't have other guys around them to match that acceleration and just that aggressiveness. Jeffrey Simmons out of the equation. I mean, you look at the defensive backfield along with the linebackers in play. I mean, it's really kind of wishy-washy in 2025. And of course, Grays definitely has some inflated numbers because honestly, you kind of have to be the cleanup guy at some point, especially when you don't have a defensive line that's capable of continual blitzes and getting pressure to the quarterback, which is something the Titans have struggled with for the last few seasons. So looking at this defense now, Jackson, I mean, everything's on paper, everything's hearsay, and just what we can just kind of come up with a prediction. Realistically, I mean, how do you feel about this linebacker's core potentially elevating themselves with the defensive line play, obviously upgraded from free agency and in the draft?
Let's start with the kind of the free agency. Excuse me, the draft real quick. I'm a huge fan of Anthony Hill, the young linebacker. Right, he's another guy that's like young and explosive. He's kind of like I'm gonna say this as well. He's kind of like the guy that's a younger Quincy Williams who has the talent, who's ready to get developed under Salah. So I think that's a great pickup. I do want to say though, I think a guy that's kind of under the wing a little bit, Muhammad. I think is how you say his name, for the guy from Cleveland who has had some solid moments. Who, last year in Cleveland, he didn't have the most impressive stats, but it's a guy that's a good depth role also. But when you look at the middle linebacker position, especially with Cody Barton, is that's going to be a battle to watch in training camp, because when you look at training camp, I think it's him and Hill and Barton that's going to potentially look at the starting middle linebacker spot. And Robert Saleh says, "Yeah, I still like Cody Barton. I'm also a fan of Anthony Hill." And he's going to let those guys battle it out. And last year, Cody Barton had a good, impressive camp, but he didn't have, a great, impressive season last year. He did okay. He had some good numbers, but, I think Cody Barton could have had some better playing last year. But I think another guy also to watch, and I know it's a little bit under sleeper because, this guy's been talking about being cut. This guy's being talked about, being on the block. I think James Williams still has some potential to at least win a spot. I know it's a long shot, but I still like James Williams as a potential backup spot. So besides that, I think the linebacker core is way better this year. I think there's a lot of young guys I just mentioned in there. And you know what? I think Anthony Hill could potentially get a chance to start if Robert Saleh lets him start. We'll see where it goes in the next couple of days, weeks in the training camp. But you know what? Hill's a guy to watch for this team. I think he's a smart young middle linebacker that's going to fit well in the system too.
And I mean, with that being said, I'm glad you brought up Barton because I always felt, people calling for him to be traded. There's still value in him.
There's still value. Yeah.
He's not the best player, but he can make plays when you need him to, and you give him the opportunities to. I mean, this is the same dude against the Chargers that had a pick six.
Yeah.
So I'm not discounting what his playing skill is. I just felt in terms of just linebacker play, when you don't have a defensive line that can basically get you pressure on the quarterback, you're kind of having to do a lot of cleanup work, as I brought up. So obviously we're going to be interested, especially with how camp plays out. You bring up Hill, and I think that's definitely going to be a big camp battle. I obviously think Gray is going to be your lock-in on the other side of the ball. But one thing that I'm very intrigued about is, what do you think Cedric Gray should do in this camp to separate himself and get people talking about a skill set that we have completely ignored? What do you think he can do to add another tool to his already very impressive toolbox?
I think I mentioned it earlier. I think being more coverage. I think that's a thing that Cedric Gray has to show that he can improve on. And again, Michael, the defensive line's impressive. I'm really staying strong in the coverage. And I think we're going to see a lot more consistency from Cedric Gray in camp as well. You're going to see a lot of guys running around. And, I think in camp, I'm very excited to see where, Cedric Gray is going to fit. I honestly, besides those two things, I think Cedric Gray has already emerged a lot in the run defense. I think he tackles really well. He's a strong tackler. He's a smart football player. He blitzes as well, which, another aspect that, he fits in Robert Saleh. So I think him just also playing up to his speed is a thing to watch in camp. How can Cedric Gray switch from from scheme to scheme? Because, a lot of guys in this defense from last year, Jeffrey Simmons is the same exact way. So I think him just easing into that brand new Robert Saleh scheme is something that I'm very excited to see how Cedric Gray, how it goes on from the first day when camp is there until when pads come on, until the preseason when the Titans, when he officially goes out there. Because remember, guys are going to go in preseason. So we'll see a little bit of glimpse of Cedric too.
So which do you think might be more likely in 2026? Cedric Gray making a Pro Bowl this year, or Anthony Hill becoming an All-Pro in year one?
That's tough. That's tough to say. You put me on the spot. I'm very confident about Cedric Gray being a Pro Bowl this year, because I'm putting this here. This is, it's still July, still under the, still really far away. I think Anthony Hill could potentially make a start. I think he has potential to be an All Pro, but I think Cedric Gray being a Pro Bowl is that's what I'm putting. I'm gonna put it in pen, Michael, and put it on the screen. Cedric Gray All Pro. Just put it right behind me. I'm keeping that there. The thing with Anthony Hill is number one, Robert Saleh has not officially named him the starter. So we don't really know if he's officially going to be starting. So I'm excited over the next couple of days to see who gets the number one reps, who gets the number two reps over time and the periods that we get to see these guys on the field. And then Saturday, we get to see them on the field. Fans get to go back to the facility. But I'm very confident about Cedric Gray being a Pro Bowl this year, man. That's my firm answer.
I will say with Hill, when you trade up for a guy like that, he's going to start.
He's
May not be week one, but you plan on
he's going to
starting
start. He's going to start this year. He's going to start this year. We just don't know when he's going to start.
That's all up to him, especially with camp coming up in just mere days. So we're not too far from seeing how that's going to play out. So to finish off on this topic, so Jackson, give me your realistic expectations for Cedric Gray for 2026.
I think he's going to break another 150 tackles plus this year. I think that's number one for him. I think he's going to be a tackling machine. I think he's going to get more tackles for loss this season. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I think he'll get up to the double digits for tackles for loss as well. So I think also for sacks for Cedric Gray, I could potentially, it's not going to be a high number, but I would want to say the 2-3 range is appropriate for Cedric Gray, kind of in that range. Game in some blitzes. I do think he gets double-digit quarterback pressures on that defense. I think that's something that he would do a lot of as well, especially that Robert Saleh, how he's done his linebackers in the past. So I'm firm with all those stats. That's what I'm standing on right now.
And I'll add a stat to that as well. I think he'll get about 2 or 3 forced fumbles this year.
Okay, I've got forced fumbles, yep.
I really think Robert Saleh is going to try and add just him just getting a peanut punch kind of just opposition to his game. And I think that would just definitely help him be a more complete player if he can help turn, forced fumbles into potential scoring opportunities. We've seen what Robert Saleh can do with just guys coming off the street when the 49ers were dealing with their slew of injuries. So obviously, I'm not too concerned what he can do with guys that had a solid year in 2025.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not concerned about Saleh at all. And you know what? Saleh is a guy that you want as a coach for a young linebacker. You want to bring up the point. I mentioned Quincy Williams earlier. But I remember I have to look back at the video and look at the play. But he talked about a Fred Warner play one time where I was just super impressed about it. Again, I have to look back on it. But just Robert Saleh, just his knowledge and him just teaching young linebackers. And then also I think it was Fred Warner who posted on his Instagram story. He says, hey, he told Jeffrey Simmons, you're getting a heck of a coach. So I think Cedric Gray and Anthony Hill are getting a great coach, a great guy that's had multiple years at coaching linebackers and multiple years of experience. I think that's good also for the young guys too.
Absolutely. And I genuinely feel that this linebacker course got a great opportunity at being something special. It's understandable when you bring in a defensive coach that their first imprint on the team is going to be building the defense in their image. And I think the best thing Robert Saleh did, especially with his mindset coming into this team and with this whole new situation, is him play calling. If you're good at something, you shouldn't automatically just give it away because you have more responsibilities. Now, maybe down the road, he could probably kick that responsibility off, especially if the team becomes more competitive and we win some games and, Super Bowls, whatever. But, that's just me. We get to that point, then that's something you can definitely do. But, I always felt, some of the most successful coaches call their own plays.
I'm gonna add something in there also, Michael, is something we didn't bring up earlier. I'm also very glad this Titans front office is trusting in Robert Saleh, and especially in the draft, to be like, hey, I like Heldrick Folk. Trade up to go get him in the first round. And that shows that Robert Saleh has confidence in Keldrick to have a big role in this defensive line. So I'm very positive about that. And the same thing with Anthony Hill, right? The Titans are sitting there in the third round, and I think it was like early third round, and you're sitting there, you're like, okay, Anthony Hill's still there. Will he fall 5 or 6 spots? Mike Bergonzi's like, nope, I'm gonna go trade up and get Anthony Hill. I think that's very great confidence, and that makes a front office come together and be like, this is the guy we want. Robert Saleh, like those guys coming out of the combine. So I think it's a very good thing to see everybody just working together and knowing that they have great young pieces in this team. And Robert Saleh is going to work with them. And, I know a couple of these guys are behind in, mini camp because they kind of rested them during rookies. We didn't get to see him out there for that camp. But, I think Robert Saleh, for him to be able to get trust from Mike Bergonzi and the executives to be able to make those moves in basically his first couple months, I'm impressed by the Titans front office, and I'm very glad Mike Bergonzi is doing that too.
And I'm glad you brought up Mike Bergonzi because he's going to be a major talking point in our next segment. But first, we got to get a break in real quick. So let's take 30 seconds, refresh, revive, and revitalize, and we'll come back and start talking about potential centers for the Tennessee Titans, who we think will start, who should start, and why they should start. 30 seconds, and we'll be back.
You're watching the Power Hour with your hosts, Michael Bishop and Tyler Staggs.
The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and as always, thank you for joining us on this fine Monday evening. Guys, it is always wonderful to see you on the show and in the chat. Shout out to everybody in there, and I see you, Mom. Love you. Mean it. Always. So keep giving us those comments and keep giving us the feedback. We love just hearing everything you got to say and bring to the topic board because you make the show go, and it's because of you. Not only the Power Hour, but the Titan Upload Network as a whole is a great success. So we appreciate you very much, as always. And don't forget, if you love the show, help it grow. Follow us on all our social media platforms at the Power Hour 615 and at the Titan Upload Network. We will give you the best Tennessee Titans and NFL coverage we can, 24/7, 365. There as much as the budget will allow us. But trust me, we're going to milk that budget as much as we can because you're worth the effort. And a special thank you, of course, to our birthday boy, Jackson Weber of the Titans Report podcast. We appreciate you for being on here tonight with us on your special day. I want to make sure you give a shout out to the fans and let them know where to find all your great content out. And, of course, if you got something in the works, it's always a good time to leave them with a teaser.
Yeah, so you guys can find me Titan Reports on YouTube and X as well, Instagram, Titan Report Podcast. We are actually getting some reporters in the rings right now for the Titans. I got a couple guys that I'm talking to privately to come on. You might see a special big-time Titan reporter come back on again, so just stay tuned for that right around training camp. So that'll be very fun.
Just yet another rising star we have on the Power Hour, and we're very grateful to have him on, especially on his birthday once again. So happy birthday once again to you, Jackson. I'm going to milk this thing for what it's worth. You only get one birthday, so you deserve to get the praise you deserve. I appreciate you, bud. Well, all right, guys, let's jump into segment 2. The Tennessee Titans center position is very much going to be a very critical ideal that we're going to get, especially once camp hits. But I think we've got a few ideas of potentially who might be the front and favorite, especially when it might be a long-term solution. Well, Jackson, let's get to this. And I think it's important, especially setting up this narrative. We know how Cam Ward's success is going to be long-term, and it all starts with a solid offensive line. But, of course, you have to have your cornerstone piece of the offensive line. And most people say that's your offensive tackle positions, which it can be an argument point. But I would counter with that. You have to have a solid center because the center is the one that's going to touch the ball just as much as the quarterback will. Not to mention the fact he's going to call audibles. He's going to call shifts. He's the guy front and center. So it's critical that the Titans get this situation locked down for the long term, even if they have to plug in a guy to potentially just get things rolling for the 2026 season. Now, the Titans, of course, have about a few options that they can go with center. So I would go ahead and give you this opportunity to discuss who you think right now is at the top of that list and who people should be looking out for.
Yeah, so when you're kind of heading to the off season, the center position was going to be interesting since we learned in the combine, right, that Lloyd Cushenberry got cut from the Titans. What was the next steps? Where were they going to go? I think right now, currently on this Monday, I think Austin Slopeman is a guy that I think is going to start right away. But however, let me kind of verify. I don't think he starts the whole season. I think he's going to start at least maybe either the first half of the season or a bulk of games. Or there could be a potential chance you could have Sloman maybe for a couple games here and there. He's a guy that reminds me a lot like Corey Levin. He's kind of like the Corey Levin right now to this offensive line room. So I think Solomon's going to get a chance to start right away for the Titans. He has familiarity with Brian Dable in that offense, right? He knows Carmen Basilio, who that's the reason why he came to Tennessee, is because then he knew once when Dable and Carmen were going to be the coaches here, that's what really interested him. So even though he started 4 games last year for the Giants, there could be a potential he's going to start, for a handful of games, way more than 4 games for the Titans offense this year. So I think he's a guy that's going to get the starting nod right away. But a guy to watch, Pat Coogan. I am a huge fan of Pat Coogan. And, it's going to wonder, number one, where he's going to get his chance. But the kid is absolutely a stud, and he's been a stud for his whole college career. He started in Notre Dame multiple games. He's very experienced. He's a captain. He's a leader. He helped Indiana's offensive line, and through that whole college football playoff, Pat Coogan. I don't know how much time this was, Michael, but I think he's one of the guys on the offensive line who won the Rose Bowl MVP. You don't see too many of those. So if he's
No.
getting that, then you know that this kid's good. So Pat Coogan was an absolute steal on day 3 of the draft. He's one of my favorite day 3 round picks. Smart guy. He started multiple years and through that years, but he's a guy that's going to fit well. I think the question is how long they're going to wait to start him. But I think Pat Coogan, I think he could be potentially the center of the future.
And I'm going to tie this in with what you're talking about in the earlier segment, especially with Mike Bergonzi.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Bergonzi loves shopping for linemen in the later rounds because he knows how to find those types of players. I mean, he hit a massive home run with Trey Smith. And since then, you look at the body of work that he's had, especially working in the later rounds of the draft with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's where he finds his key players, especially that have had a big contributing piece for those Super Bowl teams where they continue to find depth. So, of course, we bring up Coogan, that he's going to be the guy that potentially has an opportunity to be the gap stop for the Titans for years to come. And, of course, that's not going to come with just him just being handed the job. He's got to put the work in. He's going to have to learn just how to play in the NFL and how to be a center in the NFL, even more importantly. So, with Schlotman, you definitely need a guy that's NFL ready and understands the system, but it's eventually going to get handed over at some point. But I do have to say, in this instance, even with the Lloyd Cushenberry thing, and it didn't work out, and I definitely had some doubts, especially with last year kind of coming in with the injury. So I honestly felt that that was going to be just one of those things that was going to be just you kind of holding your breath and seeing how it played out. And obviously, I just don't think he really just was himself even after that whole situation because we never got consistent play from him.
Mm-hmm.
So based on this, Jackson, I think my best evaluation is Kim Ward doesn't need excellent offensive line play to be successful. I just need good enough offensive line.
That's exactly
to be successful.
I think we just need a good enough Austin Slopeman. And he's not a superstar or anything, but we just need something good out of him, right? I think last year, as you mentioned with Lloyd Cushenberry, he was a big letdown last year. He not successful. He had a rough time coming back from the injury. And, multiple guys on the offensive line had the same issue. But, I think Sloman, if he's just productive, if he's just healthy, if he does his thing, a couple pressures are going to happen here or there. Maybe a sack happens here and there, but you want to make sure you limit that as much as possible. You communicate well with Sloman and Ward. And so far, what I've been hearing, they've been communicating pretty well. And now it's kind of hard to tell, Michael, because the pads have not came on yet. We have
Right.
not gotten a great idea of what these guys look like right now. But in the next week we're talking from right now, pads are going to come on. I'm pretty sure it's August 2nd or 3rd when they're going to come on. August 3rd, excuse me. And we're going to get a better idea sooner than later what these guys are going to look like. So if Slotman's just productive, and I'm not asking for him to when he's, at the end of the season, give up, end of the year, just have like multiple games with like 0 sacks. No, it's gonna happen once in a while. He might let up 1 or 2, but as long as he's healthy, he's consistent, that's all we're asking from Austin Sloman until Pat Coogan gets the starting job.
So look, obviously, especially when you get the pads on, we're going to be paying very close attention to August 7th when they do the blue-white scrimmage. And then when they have their first, you know, joint practices with the 49ers starting up in San Francisco, that's where we're really going to kind of see the team test their mettle. And I've always been more of a fan of just joint practices in terms of just the preseason in general. Because,
Mhm.
I'll be honest, Jackson, to me, the preseason, it's more of just a glorified dress game, and it's more for the guys that are fighting for a roster spot.
Yeah.
I know who's going to initially be on my 22. You're just really trying to find what guy's going to help improve the team going forward and has better value within the running season that you're in. So, looking at the center list right now,
Mhm.
We've got an idea of how it's going to play out, but of course, it also has to kind of just tie in with another situation we're keeping an eye on. That's kind of the spoiler alert right here. Really, something that I think a lot of fans are also needing to pay attention to. We're trying to figure out who is going to fill in for that right guard position. And of course,
Mm.
Jackson Slater seems penciled in almost as the unanimous choice right there. So, is that fair to make that assumption, or do you think that there's somebody that has a better opportunity in this camp to potentially separate themselves?
Yeah, right guard's a question mark too. When you're looking at it this offseason, I don't think Kevin Zeitler's coming back. I hate to say the door is closed, but it is pretty much closed. There's barely like a teeny tiny crack, Michael. I don't think he's coming back yet. So when you're looking at the right guard spot, it's between two guys. You mentioned Jackson Slater, but don't sleep on Cordell Volson. I think he's a guy that, could potentially start, or since he's a veteran, I think he's going to get some experience. So he's had multiple experience in the past. The biggest thing why that he's not getting a lot of talk about is because he had a shoulder injury that had to miss the last season, but they signed him for a reason. Borgonzi thought, hey, this is a guy that can compete in camp. I think that Volson's a guy that, I'm not going to make numbers, but I don't think he's going to let Jackson Slater have the job. I think he's going to very much put his name in the ring. I think he's very much going to, show some people, hey, I think I deserve a chance too, and here's why. I think that's something that he's going to do. But I don't think Carmona's going to be at that spot. I think he's going to be mostly backing up Sharansky. I don't think he's going to get a starting nod. However, that could be wrong. But, as I see it today, I think he's more backup to Sharansky than I see Carmona starting. So it's between those two guys. And, I did a poll on my ex, Michael, earlier, and 73% said Jackson Slater. And, I know fans are just hearing things, but I think it's more 60-40 that Jackson Slater. I'm putting him in pencil, yes, but I'm not putting him in ink as of right now.
And that's a fair assumption, but I'll take the other side of the argument right now. And, I also have to tie in from what I saw, what he did in the Senior Bowl. And you knew right there's something special about him. He's able to just manhandle defensive tackles, defensive ends, and really just be a difference maker when given the opportunity. And once he had a chance to get in there and play, he did pretty good. So, the skill set's there. And I feel like even the offensive line coach is definitely an upgrade from what we had. And I think in terms of modern day NFL blocking, maybe that's an issue Bill Callahan had with his team. That's a debate for another day. But I do think in terms of what Brian Dable's trying to do with this offensive line and his offense, it matches more in sync with everything that they're trying to build long term. And I just see, in a sense, I don't know if Jackson Slater's going to be a Pro Bowler or even just a great offensive lineman, but I definitely feel confident enough for him to have the job and an opportunity, especially if he can get into camp, stay healthy, and really just make guys turn their heads and just feel confident enough where it's like, hey, this is our guy.
I agree. I think, and the thing about Jackson Slater is some people forgot, I heard this from my man Stoney Keeley. He worked out a lot at center this offseason. He was formerly a left guard back in Sacramento State, I believe. So he has the versatility. I like Jackson Slater a lot. And this coaching staff likes him too, And the Robert Sala, what he said in this press conference, give or take, coaches say this and this, but he's going to give him every single chance to win the spot. And I think that Jackson Slater can have every chance to win the spot. Again, it's going to really matter, Michael, when those pads come on. We talk about the center position, but the right guard spot's pretty important. And you want to have a guy that like Jackson Slater. They believe in Jackson Slater, so I think that Jackson Slater. I think he's going to be the starter today. And that's what I think. I mentioned, don't be surprised about Volson, but I think Jackson Slater does have the nod. And I'm very excited about this kid, and the Titans are too. And they drafted him last year for a reason. Again, you brought up Mike Bergonzi finds steals in the 5th round. And I think Jackson Slater could be potentially one of Mike Bergonzi's steals that he found late in last year's draft.
I mean, we could even make that same argument if Pat Coogan can actually step
Yeah,
up and be
exactly.
the player that we saw him on that playoff run with Indiana. So I'm not even going to discount that because, you know, talent in the NFL can be found anywhere if you know how to truly evaluate it, especially if you're not paying close enough attention to the little details that make them be successful. So let's end this on this take. And I think this is an interesting take. I can just easily ask, what do you think the offensive line is going to be from week one? No. I'm going to make this a little more fun and challenging. Give me your take on what the offensive line is going to look like from each position in week 18.
Each position, what it's going to look like. I think we're going to see more productive from Dan Moore this year than last year. I think Dan Moore, I think he's getting more comfortable. Now, I'm not going to say Dan Moore is going to be a guy that's going to have great numbers. Again, he's going to be a guy that's just going to be serviceable left tackle. And, we know what he can do. I think Moore is going to be fine at left tackle next year. I don't know what the numbers are going to be on him, but I think, people look at the PFF numbers, Michael, and they get very fooled on Dan Moore. He had a better second half. I think we're going to see more second half Dan Moore than first half Dan Moore this year. And we know about Sharonsky. We know what he can do, a Pro Bowler. He should have been a Pro Bowl last year. I think is very much a chance to do that this year. I'm perfectly fine, Sharonsky. Mike Bergonzi's watching this. Please extend Pierre Sharonsky, please and thank you. Deserves every single penny he gets. So I'm comfortable with the left side. I think the left side is going to be fine. And again, Michael, the right side is going to be interesting, right? I think that's really something that we're going to have to watch and keep an eye on. I think J.C. Latham starting on the PUP list is, I'm not going to say it's 100% concerning, but it's something you have to keep an eye on how much time he's going to miss, because I brought it up, he's missed some OTAs, great. It's voluntarily, but you want to see a guy like JC Latham in there because this is kind of like a JC Latham prove it year. So this is kind of JC Latham's year to be like, okay, I think I deserve, this spot. I think I definitely have a spot on this team. He wants to fight for it. And I think JC Latham's injury set him back last year and what he had. I think he's, I'm not sure what the lingering injury is. I can't report that today, but I think we just see more productive from JC Latham at that right tackle spot will be a little more encouraging. And then the interior offensive line again. What's it going to look like? Is it going to be Sloman? Is it going to be Volson? I do think at the end of the year, Michael, I think it is Pat Coogan and Jackson Slater at those guys together in week 18 when this is over.
You heard it here first.
Mm-hmm. You heard it.
And I would genuinely, definitely just give that my check mark of approval because I think eventually that's what the front office is envisioning long term with the offensive line. when they jump in and have their opportunity, it's going to all depend on just the whole situation as it plays out. Is an injury going to come into play? Is somebody going to outperform somebody in camp? That's always the narrative that gets set up long term. But as I said, I don't need this offensive line to be the number one offensive line in the NFL.
No, I agree.
I wouldn't be mad at that if that's what happened.
I think that would be a home run. I think we'll be definitely doing some sprints if we got the best offensive line in the league.
But I've seen what we can do, especially with mediocre offensive line play. If Tony Pollard can continue to find ways to rush for 1,000 yards, especially just as bad as he was earlier in the beginning of 2025, that still blows my mind.
It does. And, like I mentioned with Dan Moore, and I think Latham and Moore are going to have better years. Like I just mentioned, the second half for the Titans offensive line was not bad. It was better. It was, it took a big step. And I think that's what, people are missing that because they checked out on the Titans. But I have to look back at the notes. Yeah, it was, the sacks were way down. I think the quarterback pressures are way down, and that's also on the quarterback too, Michael. That's kind of also the thing, Cam Ward got better in the second half. We all talked about it, but you have to give credit to your offensive line. There is a reason why Tony Pollard got over 1,000. You just mentioned in the second half, especially that big second half year. So, and the offensive line, give them credit against Cleveland. They played. Myles Garrett is the best defensive lineman right now, especially one of the best edge players. And for Dan Moore to only give up 1 sack in the first half and the whole entire game is encouraging. So I think this offensive line, like you mentioned, Michael, has so much potential. We've seen it. And I think Carmen Basilio is a guy that can really help turn around this offensive line and help them be better and have more production than they were last year.
Yeah, when you hold Myles Garrett to 1 sack in a career year, like you deserve to be praised, and I'll give flowers for that performance. So regardless, the Tennessee Titans offensive line is still going to be a question until we see them perform out on the field in pads and can see consistent performances where they can continue to help Cam Ward elevate his game and also importantly get the running game more involved and get pressure off the quarterback. Will it happen? It's a massive question you have to ask, but of course, it's going to be the one question Tennessee Titan fans are going to be paying attention to until the question is officially answered.
I agree.
All right, guys, we'll take our last break, and when we come back, we love you, we mean it, but we got to kick you out of here because it's a lot of stuff going out in the real world, and I mean, y'all got jobs and stuff, so I ain't going to be holding you here all night. I mean, if you wanted to, but I mean, I probably have to just kind of come up with some stuff off my head, but I'm not going to do that to you. It's a quick 30 seconds. We'll be right back after this.
Watching the Power Hour with your hosts, Michael Bishop and Tyler Staggs.
The Power Hour is on the air. Live streaming you on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and as always, thank you for joining us on this fine Monday evening. Guys, once again, you showed up, you showed out for us, and we love you for it, and we appreciate it. If it wasn't for you, the show wouldn't go, and it's because you keep showing up for us that we're going to continue to give you the best content we can put out every week for you, every year, every day, because that is our promise to you, not only at the Power Hour, but at the Titan Upload Network as well, that you deserve to get the best content for the Tennessee Titans and the NFL every chance we can give it to you. So as always, my humblest thanks to you for continuing to show up for us. And I've got to give you, of course, the all-infamous round of applause. So don't forget, guys, sharing's caring. Make sure you share it out to all your friends and family because we'll continue to get the algorithm built up and get the show out to everybody that wants to watch it. And, of course, special shout out to Jackson Weber of the Titans Report podcast for joining us on his birthday of all days. So we're glad to close it out on a high note for him. Congratulations, birthday boy. You earned it. So one more
Love it.
time before we get to our next segment, give a shout out to the audience. Let them know where to find all your great content at.
Yes, I do want to first give a shout out. Please like the show wherever you guys are watching. Please subscribe to the Titan Upload. You guys definitely deserve the big shout out. Please do that in my favor as well. Where you can find me, Titan Reports live on X, Instagram, and also on TikTok as well if you do have TikTok. And also make sure you check out the podcast live on Spotify and YouTube. That's where you can find the best place also for my channel.
I mean, you don't have to butter me up, man. I was probably going to bring you on when the regular season started. You don't have to. You made the sale. You struck oil. Relax. All right, Jackson. We love everybody that showed up, but we got to get y'all back out in the real world. So, unfortunately, it's the last segment, but it's my favorite segment as well. Hit that damn theme music.
Closing time.
Good night, losers.
So, Jackson, it's pretty funny to me that Netflix just has Titan fever.
Yeah.
Obviously, with quarterback, Cam Ward was like front and center, especially with another great trio of quarterbacks. And I really thought it was a great season. Season 3, I thought was way better than season 2. And I'm honestly saying that just from somebody that I didn't even just enjoy season 2 because it just kind of felt just drug out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know the quarterbacks are exciting. There's a lot of good headlines from all 4 of those guys, and we're not just saying that because of Cam Ward. Jaden Daniels, his story I think was very interesting. I like, even though it was unfortunate he got injured, but I think just the road, I think what we've seen behind the scenes. And Michael, I'm going to be honest to you in the audience, I'm a big behind the scenes guy. I love seeing behind the scenes stuff and movies, shows, all that good stuff. I'm a huge fan of that. So I like seeing everyone's story. Joe Flacco get traded, and who knows, Joe Flacco has an old Ferrari in his car when he won the Super Bowl. I mean, gosh, I would love to take that thing out, right? But then the last guy that we also saw too, Joe Burrow, for his resilience. So, and then Cam Ward, gotta give love to number 1, to see the resilience. I talked about it. I really do like Cam Ward's character, his attitude, his work ethic on and off the field. There's a lot of good things, and it was very interesting. From the first episode, you sat down watching your popcorn, to the last episode, it's episode 7. All positive, all good things from all 4 quarterbacks.
Absolutely. And as I said, apparently Netflix just couldn't get enough Titans in 2026 because now, August 25th, on their show Untold, it appears Vince Young will be doing a segment on his time with the Tennessee Titans and after his college career ended. So that will be front and center, and I'm very intrigued to see how that'll play out. And I mean, we did a show about 4 weeks ago on our take of what Vince Young's legacy would be with the Tennessee Titans, especially after Bleacher Report came out with their 100 of all-time busts. I never saw him as a bust. I saw him as just a victim of bad circumstances that he really couldn't control. Injuries, just bad decision-making personnel-wise, bad coaching pairing. There's a lot that went into it. He had great moments, and he had just serious high potential, but it just never lived up to what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, and actually, it's actually interesting enough. I talked about this with Michael Griffin just on the show, how he was as a teammate, and he loved him. It's funny enough, Michael Griffin was talking about the time in Texas, just as leader Vince Young was. And yeah, unfortunately, the injuries hurt Vince Young. I read an interesting story today that I did not know about this, that when he got benched in 2008, they had to make sure that he was okay. I mean, the battles that he had to go through with all the injuries and, him struggling, going back and forth with the touchdowns, interceptions. I think there's a lot of high up moments for Vince Young, but I don't think he's the top 100 bust list. I think that's what Bleacher Report put out. I don't think he's on that list, but Vince Young's always a guy that you always wonder in that era, like late 2010s, if he worked out for the Tennessee Titans, where would things look today? Because that's where you have to look at a lot of quarterbacks. But I think with that you mentioned, Michael, I think the coaching, Kerry Collins was there, also got a good backup, so he got to start a lot of games. And once he left, the Titans were struggling again, trying to find their quarterback situation at that time. So you wonder in those late 2010s, early 2011, what would it look like if Vince Young was healthy and out there on the field too?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just a narrative of what ifs. And That's just the sad part, because when you did see Vince Young just on the brightest of stages and had the opportunity to have the game in his hands and win, it was amazing when he did. So it's always going to be a what if, and I think it's going to be an interesting scenario how that plays out. August 25th on Netflix is when it'll be out. So I'll check it out, and I'm pretty sure, it's more going to be directed, I think, at just personnel. I think Jeff Fisher's definitely going to get ragged on pretty well, and it wouldn't shock me in the least. So check it out when it comes out, and it's definitely just something to fill a little bit of time, especially when we don't have any preseason games to watch. So, it'll be interesting to actually hear Vince Young come out on his side of the story after a little bit of time's passed, but I think it'll make for an intriguing watch.
Right, and he finally gets the time to speak about it, finally gets to digest everything. It's been 16 years, Michael. Is that crazy? It's been 16 years since all this stuff happened, so you finally get it out of your system, and very interested to hear Vince's story from the start to the end.
Absolutely. So check it out, August 25th on Netflix. Apparently they've got Tennessee Titan fever, but hey, and free publicity is free publicity. And with that being said, thank you guys for joining us tonight on the Power Hour. One more time before we get out of here, a round of applause for you for showing up and showing it. And don't forget, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell for more notifications so you can check out every show that comes on every Monday. And I promise you, we are going to be getting really busy. Camp is coming up. We're going to have so much to talk about, just content-wise. And then before you know it, preseason games are going to be right around the corner, and that's when the real fun starts. So one more time before we get out of here, shout out to Jackson Webb for joining us on the show tonight, and happy birthday one more time. So we're seriously just happy that you took the time to join us on the show, and I appreciate the fact that you are just killing it out there and just putting yourself out there, and you have the skill and the talent. And we're just once again excited to have another young budding star on the show. Like, we're going to keep watching your career with great interest, my friend. So you just do what you're doing. And one more time before we get out of here, give a shout out to everybody where to find your content at and what you got coming down the pike. Oh, no, you ain't getting out of there that fast, man.
There we go. We're back and rolling. I do want to send some encouragement to end the chat, just to say something too real quick. If you're out there and if you have a dream, go chase it. Go chase that dream. You have one life. Go chase it, and that's what I did. I chased my dream, and here we are. We're going one day at a time, and you have to go achieve your dreams. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself that you can do good work. And, you're going to learn a lot of things at the end of the day, when you lay your head at night. How can I be successful from today to yesterday? That's the mindset you got to have. And I appreciate you, Michael, taking time to have me on here. It's a great blessing. I appreciate everyone in the chat, everyone watching on all social medias. I do appreciate every single one of y'all. And Titans football, ladies and gentlemen, is coming back. We're very excited. And you would not have to be bored on your Sundays. You can watch real action football. We have things to talk about. Yep. So, Michael, I appreciate you having me on, and we'll definitely do this again soon.
Absolutely, Jackson. We appreciate you for being on the show tonight. Happy birthday one more time. And we will definitely get you back on as soon as possible when the regular season starts, because that's when the fun's really starting. All right, guys, that'll do it for us. We are out of here. We will be back next Monday. Tyler, get well. I'll send you a card or something, but I need my right-hand man back. Jackson Weber is a fantastic substitute, but he is no Tyler Staggs, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful way.
Yeah, well, Tyler,
all right.
Miss you.
All right. Once again, we're out of here, guys. We will see you next Monday. So for Jackson Weber, I'm Michael Bishop of the Power Hour. And as always, take care and tighten up. You're watching the Titan Upload Network.